Success transcends cities. As one of the world's most respected business leaders, I know what it takes. Join me now as I sit down with fellow leaders and we share our insights into how you can be successful. My name is Jeffrey Hayzlett, and this is All Business.
It's a dirty job and someone has to do it. Since 2003, Mike Rowe has worked hundreds of dirty jobs for his Discovery Channel show of the same name. Since then, he's become a crusader for the workforce, a podcaster, and launched a Facebook watch series. Now, Dirty Jobs is back, airing Sundays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on the Discovery Channel and streaming on Discovery Plus. Mike, welcome to All Business with Jeffrey Hayzlett. Hey, Mike, while you're known as the Dirty Jobs guy, that's not where you got your start. I understand it was opera and QVC. Can you tell me how the hell that's connected?
Well, it really depends on where you want to start the story. Everybody's always concerned about how the story ends, but the truth is, for me, it did start with dirty jobs. I grew up on a farm next to my granddad, who was the ultimate dirty jobber. Problem is, the handy gene is recessive, right? And I thought I was going to follow in his footsteps, and I couldn't. It just didn't come easily to me. This is a man, by the way, who could build a house without a blueprint, a skilled tradesman. Anyway, he was the guy who told me when I was 15, maybe 16, look, you can be a tradesman, you just might want to get a different toolbox. And that's what got me thinking differently about how to make a buck. And as it turns out, I could carry a tune. I crashed an audition for the Baltimore Opera when I was 20, got in, and wound up staying for 8 years. I just did it to get my union card so I could work in TV, but the music was great. The girls were fantastic. I was dressed up like a pirate. I was 20 years old. I stayed for 8 years.
Well, there you go. It's not a bad gig when you get it. Do you ever find yourself, I know I do, being in the media business, I pinch myself thinking they're actually paying me for this stuff.
Yeah, some days it's just a lot of gratitude and feeling like, wow, I got some really good cards and I got really fortunate because it's a tough business. And then other days it's like, are they going to find me out?
Yeah.
I'm an imposter. I spent honestly probably 15 years feeling like an imposter, impersonating a host, pretending to know more than I did, creating the illusion of competence and knowledge in short bursts. That's what hosts do. It wasn't until Dirty Jobs, actually, that I realized it's better to be a guest. It's better to be an apprentice on TV, because then you're not really weighed and measured based on your competence. You're simply evaluated based on your willingness to try. And hell, I'll try anything.
Is there something you won't try?
Well,
I mean, is there been a time when you've done the dirty jobs, you're going like, there is no way I'm doing that?
Yes, but not for the reason you think. Every legal, legitimate job that I showed up to do, I did. That really and truly was my only actual responsibility. You got to try it. But the jobs I passed on were jobs that didn't allow any possibility for humor or, I wanted to do a love letter for my granddad, right? This was a love letter to work. And one of the things about work, manual labor, that I appreciate so much is the sense of humor you'll find on most job sites. And I just didn't know how to make light of a body farm technician or a crime scene cleanup crew. If it was on HBO, maybe, but on Discovery, I wanted to focus on feces from every species, misadventures in animal husbandry, construction, hard labor, very high places, and very low claustrophobic places.
It sounds like you've got a conditions of satisfaction list as part of that. Which becomes a scope. And every business out there should have that list of some kind. And by the way, every person should have their own list like that guides them every single day.
I think so. I mean, in terms of job satisfaction, and that's what everybody's talking about today, right?
Yeah,
I mean, four and a
big
half
time.
million people just quit their jobs last month.
Yeah.
Got 11 million open positions. We got what, $1.7 trillion in student loans on the books right now. So our overall relationship with work, I think, is kind of disconnected or fractured, really. And part of that problem is job satisfaction. Everybody wants it, but nobody seems quite sure how to get it. And you can learn a lot from dirty jobbers because really, I mean, I hate to generalize, but if you look at that show for the last 20 years that it's been on the air, and you look at the people as a group, well, you can really start to see a lot of similarities. Like, why is everybody having such a good time?
Yeah.
What do they know that we don't? Right? You could write a book on that. In fact, I'm working on one.
And they're hardworking people. They're real people. They're transparent about it, and that's a unique thing that you don't always see. I certainly have sat in a lot of boardrooms around the world and, Fortune 100 companies, and I don't quite see the same kind of work ethic,
Well,
that you see every single week on your show.
no, well, that's a fact, and work ethic is a choice. It's not something you're born with. You have to choose to develop it. And the thing I'm most proud of about Dirty Jobs is actually the foundation that evolved organically from it. I've been running MicroWorks for 14 years now, and the scholarships we award are called work ethic scholarships.
Mm-hmm.
There's a scholarship plan for everybody: academic, talent, scholastic, obviously, artistic,
Music. I mean, there's all
of it.
Yeah.
But to affirmatively look for and identify individuals who are willing to learn a skill that's in demand, willing to travel to where the opportunity is, who show up early, who stay late, who take a bite of the crap sandwich when it comes around to them from time to time, finding those people and giving them the tools they need to prosper in a trade, that's gratifying. And I think it's important, and I'm privileged to do it.
It's hard work to do the shows. I know what that's like. People think, hey, TV's easy and busy, or, easy thing to do. But, we're hauling around equipment. Even though you're the host, you're helping out. I'm sure you are helping out with that stuff, with the guys and gals that are working with you. Now, and I'm sitting here thinking 20 years of the show, more than 170 episodes, all 50 states. How often do you see an old clip and don't remember the job?
Dude, that is maybe the most alarming phenomenon in my life. And I was talking to Jay Leno the other day on my podcast, and he said the same thing. He remembers every joke he ever told, but you do a few thousand Tonight shows and they're entire monologues that you just don't remember. So for me, yeah, it doesn't happen as much on TV as it does online. When I go online and somebody posts a clip, for instance, like 30 years ago on QVC, this just happened the other day. I got a note on my Facebook page from Paul Anka. Paul Anka, who's like, he must be 90 years old.
Oh, at least, yeah.
And so he's online, and God knows how he found it, but he found a clip of me demonstrating the very first karaoke machine for sale in America. And it was midnight on the QVC cable shopping channel, and I was singing My Way, a song that he wrote, right? And so he's playing this clip for me, and I'm looking at it, and it's like, there's no doubt this happened. That's me.
You don't remember any of it.
None. Nothing.
And by the way, at some point, you thought that was a good idea.
Well, see, what happened to me at QVC was I never should have been hired, right? I was in the middle of an opera performance. I walked across the street to drink a beer during the intermission, and the bartender had QVC on, and he was auditioning the next day, right? They were doing a national search. So he bet me I couldn't get a call back. So I went down there, I auditioned, talked about a pencil for 8 minutes, got hired, and 3 nights later, I'm sitting there on live TV talking about the Amcor negative ion generator and the Health Team infrared pain reliever and this whole box of crap. I didn't know what it was, but it was the craziest 3 years of my life. And so much of it I don't remember because I never really gave in to the shift work. I worked the overnights, but I was up all the time. So I was never really awake. I was never really asleep in those days. And I was usually coming from the bar and restaurant down the street. So I usually had a few pops. I'd go on the air and I'd sit down and I'd try and make sense of gold lobster claw style safety clasp hanging onto some trinket made of burnt topaz or some stuff. I don't remember tons of it, but it's all online. Somebody posted all these old VHS videos. So yeah, every now and then when I want to feel super weird, I'll sit down, I'll pour a little whiskey and I'll watch myself doing things I have no recollection of doing.
Do you ever, I look back on some of that stuff and I don't really get, thinking back, oh, I would have done that differently or something. But every once in a while I look at something and go like, what was I thinking? What was the thought process behind that? You corny bastard, something
Yeah.
along those lines. Do you get those same kind of feelings?
Yeah, I do. For me, I mean, QVC is just one long, giant sphincter tightening flop sweat. Like you just look at that and you're like, what in the world were you doing? But there's some moments in dirty jobs early on when you know, when I realized that I wasn't going to host the show, I was going to be a guest. And once I made that determination, I realized, well, what would a good guest do? A good guest would say anything that popped into his mind as though he were talking to a friend, right? So I said a lot of things on that show, especially in the first season, that's just pure 8-year-old nonsense. I mean, every poop joke, every every cheap sexual innuendo, all of it. I just threw everything out there. And so adults loved it because their kids didn't get it. Kids loved it because they were waiting for a toilet to blow up in my face. And before we knew it, we had this weird recipe for a show that really wasn't a show. It was a trip, you know. I mean, I know you've done a lot of TV, but your listeners should understand the thing that really made Dirty Jobs different wasn't the dirt and it wasn't the jobs. It was the fact that there were no actors, no script, no pre-production, none of that. We never did a second take on Dirty Jobs.
And Mike, that most people don't understand that your show is the precursor for a lot of these shows I call work shows on TV, like Pawn Stars, The Pickers, all of these different shows who are nothing about just following the guys around with the camera, doing their work, which is amazing that you would have a TV show watching people work.
Well, look, I just figured this was 2002 when this really came around. And you'll remember reality TV was a thing, but there were no reality shows yet. There was Survivor. Yeah. And I think Jesse James might have been making motorcycles in his garage, right? So I took that word really seriously. And I said to the network, I remember it like it was yesterday. I'm like, guys, we can't do a second take. A second take is a performance. And if you want a show with performances in it, that's cool. But let's get a script and let's do a sitcom. If you really want an unscripted show, then what you have to do is you have to shoot it just like you would, but you need one extra camera to always stay wide and to treat the whole process like a documentary. And in moments where you have to maybe change a battery or maybe a plane flies over and bitches up the take, or any number of things happen, that get in the way of, the job, that's when I called it the truth cam. And I would turn to the truth cam and I would just tell the viewer, all right, here's what's going on. Here's what's frustrating. Here's why my job sucks today. Here's why I hate TV, right? I would make fun of it. And that did two things. The first thing it did was it put the people I was profiling at ease like nothing else could. Like when they saw me being that candid with the camera, they knew that they were actually in charge. They were the experts. And I was just there to keep the show on the rails. But we were really there to honor them. The second thing it did was it built an incredible amount of trust with the viewer. Because, when a viewer sees a guy crawling through a river of crap covered in somebody else's filth, Some of them are going to feel sorry for me, but none of them are going to expect me to try and sell them something. You know, that guy's not going to lie to you. He's just trying to live. And when they and when they see you turn to the camera and level with them, you know, that level of candor was very unusual. And that camera, you know, incorporated my whole crew into the show. And that, in hindsight, gave me an incredible amount of permission to push the boundaries in ways that a lot of other shows couldn't.
You know, and it makes people feel good about themselves, which is a really great thing to be able to do. Not only a little comedic relief, you know, you've got that going, but I want to ask you about the new season, which I'm just excited about. And part of that is because you visit the Crazy Horse Monument, which is in my home state of South Dakota. I love Crazy Horse. I love the family. I love the story. It's been a 70-year startup of a company, because they're only halfway through their journey and a long ways away from it. And it literally takes generations to finish. What was your biggest takeaway from Crazy Horse?
Commitment, a handshake between Gustav and Chief Henry Standing Bear.
Yeah.
You know, they shook hands, and this guy embarked on a quest unlike anything I've ever seen. You know, my idea, Jeff, was to go to Rushmore. I said the network, you know, I want to rappel down like Thomas Jefferson's face, and I want to sandblast.
Fix the crack. Yeah, fix the cracks or whatever. Yeah.
Or like sandblast his nostrils, right? Whatever they do to maintain that. Well, geez, the Park Service looked at me like, "Are you out of your mind? This is a national park. We're not going to let you do that." I'm like, "Well, okay." I had to ask, but right up the road, there's Crazy Horse,
which is bigger than Mount Rushmore.
4 times bigger.
Yeah.
But they've never taken a penny of federal money.
Yeah.
That whole thing is privately funded. That's all donations. So I talked to Monique, you know, who was running the show there. Then I
one of the sisters. Yep.
One of the sisters. And they rolled out the red carpet. They said, you can do whatever you want. You want to rappel down the face? You want to do this? You want to do that? They let me work on his fingertip.
Oh, right? Yeah. Which, by the way, most people don't know this. I happen to know because I'm very close with the family. I've been known them for years. Is 11, just the fingernail is 11 or 12 feet across. It's massive, right?
It's massive.
Yeah.
And look, it's a perfect blend of intricate, precision, detailed work. I mean, there's math, there's geometry, there's trig, there's drilling, there's azimuths, there's all kinds of crazy things that have to happen to get the work done right. But it's also backbreaking. It's exhausting. It's dangerous. You're a couple hundred feet up in the air half the time. And then on top of all of it, it's a great notion. It's a commitment, unlike anything I've ever seen. You know, this season on the show, I'll spend a day on a fish boat, and that's all you need to know about the fish boat. I'll spend a day putting down an epoxy floor. You know, I'll spend a day hunting iguanas, whatever. This, to your point, is a centuries-long project. And the fact that it was begun by men who knew they would never live to see it finished, and the fact that 50 years later, it's still being worked on by men who will not live to see it finished, that's epic.
Unbelievable. Let me ask you one last question before we got to let you go. What's the biggest misconception about the show, do you think?
I'd say, I'm not sure it's a misconception. It's just not a complete understanding. People look at Dirty Jobs and they see a love letter to manual labor and blue collar work. And it is surely that. But it's also, in equal parts, a love letter to risk and entrepreneurship. People are always surprised to learn that 40, 50 of the people we featured on that show are multimillionaires. They just don't look like it. They're covered in slime or grime or crap or something worse, you know? And so there's a tendency with the show to see it in a one-dimensional way. And to that point too, some people will look at the show and see it as a cautionary tale. They'll say to their kids, for instance, you know, see, this is why you got to go to college. You know, you're going to wind up hanging upside down from a bridge with a welding torch. But the rest of the viewers look at the show and say, see, son, that's why all jobs matter. That's why dignity can be in any job. And by the way, that welder hanging upside down from that bridge is making 180 grand a year. And so the show has given me a chance to challenge myths and misperceptions and stigmas and stereotypes around certain kinds of jobs. It's let me run a foundation that awards $1 million a year in work ethic scholarships to kids who want to pursue those jobs. But mostly, to answer your question, it's a show with enormously rich, complicated, and important themes dressed up like a romp through a sewer. It's an 8-year-old getting a pie in the face while at the same time showing people a look at work and hopefully reconnecting our country to the basic definition of a good job. 11 million open jobs right now, right?
Amazing. You know, I'm going to ask one more bonus question here. Sure. Because it's just another notion that picks up on me. One of my conditions of satisfaction is I got to have fun at what I'm doing. You seem to be having a lot of fun at what you're doing.
If you're not laughing, the joke's on you. And if you can't find a way, I don't care how grim it is, you know, if you can't find a way to see the humor in a thing, your life's going to be unnecessarily difficult. I don't care if it's a crew of welders or sewer inspectors or skull cleaners. I've seen it everywhere I go. The camaraderie, the band of brothers feeling, and humor are the two most important things that people forget that exist on every construction site I've ever been to. That matters. And it just goes to maybe the even larger point that work is so much more than transactional. You know, it's so much more. And that's why when I read about 4.5 million people quitting their jobs in a month, it worries me, because it's not just a money thing. There's something else going on in our country. And if Dirty Jobs gives me permission to talk about that, I'll take it.
Mike, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. Thanks so much for being a part of it. Thanks for what you're doing to be the voice for those trades, because no one has been doing it like you've been doing it, and everybody appreciates it. And the second thing is you're showing great Americans doing great jobs, albeit dirty. So thanks a lot.
It's been a privilege, Jeff. Truly. I appreciate your time as well. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. Hey, at the end of every show, I like to talk about what I learned, and what I learned about from Mike, with a sincerity around the conditions of satisfaction that he has around the show. Those guiding principles that we have, he's got those for certainly his life, but he's also got those for the show. Do you have those for your business? That's what I learned today, is what is guiding your conditions of satisfaction for the things that you do, those principles and values that drive your business. And if you have those, you'll be able to get where you want to go a lot quicker, a lot faster, and usually a lot more profitable. And that's what I learned here on All Business with Jeffrey Hayzlett. Don't forget to tell your friends, and whether you're doing a dirty job or a clean one, just do a job and do it well. Thanks.
Welcome to C-Suite TV Insights. I'm Greg Greenberg. The Broadway lights are now dark due to the pandemic, but the healing power of music and musical theater is shining brighter than ever, thanks to a group called Broadway Hearts. Jessica Radetsky, the founder of the organization, is here to explain how you too can have a heart. Welcome, Jessica.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Greg.
Well, it's great to have you here. And tell me, how did the idea for Broadway Hearts come about?
Well, we would have Make-A-Wish children come to see our show, I'm in Phantom of the Opera, as part of their wish. And those were some of my absolute favorite performances to be a part of. Every so often they would cancel. And it just got me thinking, how can we bring the magic of Broadway to children in treatment? And so I got to work, and Broadway Hearts came to be.
And what is the membership comprised of? Singers, actors? Who's on your team?
Right. So at first it was just me, and I just asked all of my friends in my cast and then friends that I had in other shows. And it started with maybe 15 of us, and now we have almost 100 volunteers from almost all shows represented on Broadway. We would go to the Ronald McDonald House in between Saturday matinee and Saturday evening show, and you'd have a star from Hamilton on the floor with a 2-year-old, rolling around and singing songs. It was kind of a remarkable experience.
All right, so what does a typical Broadway Hearts visit look like?
So when we were allowed to go into hospitals before the pandemic, we would either live stream into the kids' rooms if the hospital was using that technology, and the kids had the capacity to call and text in to chat with us or sing with us. And if they were allowed to be in the same room with us, then we would all sit around in a circle and sing songs together, and they would request songs. And it was a really intimate, fun experience.
And how has the pandemic affected the way you operate over at Broadway Hearts?
So everything's virtual now, which we have been feeling very fortunate that we still get to be allowed into the hospitals to visit with the children this way. And they still are able to call and text in so that we can have an interactive experience with them, because that's what we want most of all, is to interact with the children. So we're doing everything virtually. The silver lining, which is amazing that there's a silver lining, is that we've been able to expand nationwide. So we're now in hospitals across the country, which we weren't able to do before because we're all based in the city. And so that's been incredible. And we hope to expand even more and get into hospitals all throughout the nation and potentially worldwide.
And then finally, what's the typical reaction when a kid or a sick person gets a visit from Broadway Hearts? Talk about the true healing power of music.
Yeah, it's remarkable. I mean, you immediately see color come back, you see eyes light up, you see dancing, you see movement, you see, we've had, a parent say, this is the first time I've seen my child out of pain in, such a long time, and tears coming down a parent's face. And that just, puts everything into perspective in 1 second. It really is incredible. We feel so lucky to be allowed to be a part of these children's lives, because they're the most inspiring people on the planet, really.
Well, it truly is an inspiring story. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching C-Suite TV Insights. I'm Greg Greenberg.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Bestseller TV. I'm Taryn Winter-Brill. We're here with Dr. Greg Reed and Jeffrey Klubeck. They are the authors of Mastermind Group, an exclusive invitation. It's great to have you both with us.
All right, great to be here.
Absolutely, Taryn.
It's nice when we have dueling authors, so to speak. That
The
said,
1-2 punch. Yeah.
Tough act to follow. How did you guys get together and decide to collaborate on the book?
Greg is somebody that I learned about back in 2011. I was early on in my career as a coach, consultant, trainer, and Greg was already doing amazing things in personal and professional growth. And years later, I was able to attend his event, Secret Knock, and we started to hit it off. And now we're partners in a couple of endeavors, including this book and Secret Knock, and a couple of other brands that we're working on.
Okay, Secret Knock, you have my interest piqued, but we'll get to that in a second.
Yeah, it's the greatest event you cannot attend. What a concept,
right? It's a secret, right?
Exactly, that's the whole idea. Bump. And so it's really interesting. In fact, that's where I met Jeffrey originally, and it was really cool because we bring the most positive, like-minded people who are taking action and put them in a room of fellowship so you can network with other people. And we said, masterminding, that is the key. When like-minded people come together, that's where the magic starts magically appearing.
Yeah, so put the book Mastermind Group. When I saw the title, I was definitely intrigued because it was an exclusive invitation. Was it a mastermind group? Was it both? So how do you describe the book?
The concept of mastermind was started by Napoleon Hill, who is like essentially the father of personal and professional growth. But as the professional growth industry evolved, people were misusing or kind of deviating from the original, how should I say, integrity of masterminding. So masterminds would either be a drama session, a psycho-emo rabbit hole, or, hey, sit around in a semicircle and let me sell to you. And Greg approached me and said, hey, what if we standardized? What if we restored the integrity to the mastermind concept and set up like a Robert's rules for how to do it the right way? Or maybe even we could create an association, become the Toastmasters of masterminding and help people run masterminds the right way, because there's so much value in the power of a mastermind.
Yeah, we understand there's a difference between counsel and opinion.
Yeah.
Opinion's based on ignorance, lack of knowledge, or inexperience, where counsel's based on mentorship, people have paved the way. So if you go to a family and friend and say you're going to start a business, they might talk you out of it if they've never done it. But if you go to someone who's an expert in that craft, they'll walk you through and tell you where to avoid the landmines and give you counsel. So our whole concept is, what if we could create a mastermind alliance where you could only get that great counsel and ignore people's opinions?
Ignore the opinion. But I was curious if you can go back for a moment. This idea of masterminding, can you clarify that a little bit for anyone out there who's not exactly sure what that means?
It's centered on I would say the concept of what we call the opportunity seat. Other people might call it the hot seat. Okay. Where let's say there's a group of 12 people and there's the seat, and everybody takes a turn getting into the seat where they declare, who am I? What am I working on? Right? And then the other members of the group get to spend some time asking clarifying questions, then spend some time offering opinion. Right? And then the person in the seat just says, thank you, without arguing back or defending their ego. Somebody scribes and writes down all of the beautiful suggestions that are coming, and then the person gets off their seat with a series of suggestions, and if they take action on at least one of them, the group has integrity. They don't have to take all of the suggestions, right? Take what works and leave the rest behind. And by the time everybody's had their turn in the seat, it's an experience of vulnerability and collaboration and community and empowerment. And I like to say that 12 minds are better than one, especially if you do a good job putting the group together.
Right. So you've created a book that does just that, so to speak?
Well, absolutely. We started something called the Mastermind Association, where we teach people how to become certified mastermind consultants so they can run, host masterminds in their own community. And so this is basically a guide to show you exactly how to do it, step 1, 2, and 3.
And you call it a business parable.
Absolutely.
Right? How would you describe that?
It's a fictional story about a mentor meeting a mentee, and then that mentee being sent on a life's journey where he meets amazing people and creates his own mastermind association so his business starts growing. So while you're reading the pages, you can see yourself through there and say, I want just that.
Okay, so it's through the eyes of a character named Kyle.
Yeah, Kyle.
Or one of you, Kyle?
I think.
What are the behind-the-scenes notes?
I have to tell you, I think there's a little bit of Kyle in all of us.
I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah.
Okay, and tell us about Kyle's journey. How did you decide, who he met and where he went?
Well, Kyle's just like anybody else. He's got parents and he's got an idea and he wants to get something started. So really, in a nutshell, Kyle's an entrepreneur.
Okay.
And there's tons of obstacles in the journey of an entrepreneur. And a lot of times entrepreneurs feel that they're alone. They don't know where to start. They don't know the research. They second guess themselves, on and on. And that's where Kyle receives an exclusive invitation to meet up with what are going to end up being some legendary characters. Do we want to reveal any
just
of the
a little
legendary
sneak peek?
Go ahead.
Well, how would you feel if you were just introduced to Martin Luther King and Steve Jobs or Amelia Earhart or Napoleon Hill himself, and you got counsel from those people on your entrepreneurial journey? Well, Kyle had that function.
Right. But as you read it, it seems like it's sort of happenstance. It kind of, it was that, he meets this person on a train and the story sort of unfolds, but he references that chance meeting. So how do you explain the chance meeting? A lot of people say, I'm always looking for a chance meeting, but it never happens.
I think it always happens. We're just not aware of it.
Okay.
So how many times have we gone to a networking event and we met that perfect person and we store their business card or their phone number in our cell phone and wait for the perfect time to reach out. But that time never comes because we don't have the worth issues or things of this nature. And the best time to reach out to that database is the moment it strikes you. And that's what we want to inspire people to do.
Sure, okay. So through the book, do you talk about the mistakes Kyle makes? Or?
No, the book is actually more focused on how the group, the mastermind group, helps Kyle avoid mistakes that he would have made had he not gotten the wise counsel of the members of the group.
Right. Remember, a good mentor will tell you what you need to hear, not always what you want to hear. And back home, I've got a great mentor because he's never told me a nice thing yet. Right. So the whole concept is I'd rather learn from people that are going to try to make me better.
Right. And just curious, you mentioned a little bit of your background, but did you guys have experience in this, mastermind grouping, so to speak, and you felt compelled to kind of put it on paper because nothing else exists? I don't think out there like this.
I'll say briefly, I, as a coach and a trainer, I've gone all around the world on like business growth retreats or I've participated as a supporting coach in various versions of Mastermind where there's a hot seat.
Right.
And I've experienced how the concept of Mastermind has been, like I said earlier, been deviated, right? So I've had experience being a supporting coach, being just like one of a panel of 4 coaches that are giving this feedback to 20, 30 entrepreneurs over the course of a 4-day event. I've done that several times in many continents and countries. But the concept of a business parable and the idea to create an association and really, I don't know, say corner the market or establish, be the first person to come up when somebody searches Mastermind, that was Greg's genius.
Okay. But we should say genius, that's aptly put, because you've written 85 books. Did I get that right?
I've been published in 85 books, but be very clear, I've got great ghostwriters and editors to make my words actually come out, sound like that.
But still, not everybody can even say that in 45 languages.
Correct.
And you recently just got a star in Las Vegas?
Yeah, on the Walk of Fame. I'm next to Elvis Presley and some of the greatest icons. Who'd have thought that one, huh?
They're next to you.
I like the way you think. Exactly.
Can you always get interviewed by
I know. And back to the Mastermind thing. So I've lived my entire life around Mastermind. So I understand that I'm not the smartest person in the room. And if I am, I'm in the wrong room. So my concept was years ago when I was interviewing amazing people, I realized the top figureheads, the corporate leaders, they had no one else to talk to because they only had fledglings that worked for them and yes people, but no one of peer. And so I started my own mastermind group with the strongest people. I won't name drop, but they are the strongest leaders of icon in business that you know today, each establishing billion-dollar brands. And what we would do is every month we'd come together and no one wanted anything from each other, but they could let their hair down and say, hey, I'm having a challenge here, what should I do? And then you got input from all these other people that were literally trying to help you grow and improve. And that's what a mastermind group truly offers. So that's what I want to do.
How did you assemble those people though?
It was really hard. I asked them. You know, that's the same
But how did
thing.
you know them? I mean, someone reading it says, that's great, but I don't know any Titans.
Well, it's interesting. When I started interviewing the most important people, I realized the most successful people are also the most available people. If you're brand new at something, you're happy-go-lucky, you're fresh or cool.
That makes sense.
You're at the top, happy-go-lucky, nothing to prove. In the middle, pain in the neck. So I just jumped to the front of the line. It's easier to get to the founder of Remax Real Estate Corporation than the local Remax office down the street because they have all these people trying to pick up the phone.
Gatekeepers, et cetera.
Exactly. So what I realized for myself is I would just Google, reach out, and once you had one connection, they're friends of like mind, they could open up the doors.
One of the things I'd like to add to that is that successful people, really successful people, are actualized. They're not needy anymore.
That's true.
So if you're trying to get in touch with somebody who's not actualized, who's still chasing their own thing, they're going to say, well, what's in it for me? I've got my own stuff. Right? But somebody that's already made their wealth several times over, they're actualized, they're not only looking to give back, right, but they're proud of giving back. It's all about service, or I would say contribution is what they're really, that's the game for them. It's not about certainty, it's not about survival if they've got that taken care of. Now it's about legacy and giving back and making sure that you help others.
And a lot of people don't ask the right questions. So for example, this last billionaire, multi-billionaire, I called up and I said, hey, I want to be more wealthy. I go, will you teach me your exact blueprint? He goes, absolutely. I go, why would you do that? He says, no one ever asked me. He goes, my grandkids are fighting over my inheritance and I'm still alive, but no one asked how I did it. So what I do is ask clarifying questions so I can open up the doors of opportunity, and they're so happy because they got to get it out of their brain and share it with somebody else.
So tell us, what did he tell you? What's the billionaire blueprint?
That guy,
Are you
so
a billionaire
interesting.
now?
Well, that guy. I'll tell you one thing. Since the last year of actually implementing all the things I've learned, I've quadrupled my personal income and wealth. That is true fact. And I did it by simply following the successful actions of other people. And so that guy, he made $1 billion. I go, how'd you make it in dirt? And he said, time plus land is wealth. I go, what does that mean? He goes, all I do is I look for a town that's growing 25% a year. Go on Google Maps, it's free. I look for Broadway, Main Street, draw a line out 8 miles, and I buy the dirt. I rented the dirt to farmers, they pay the lease, and as the town continues to grow, eventually ends up on his plot 8 miles out, and since he's on Broadway, he flips it and sells it to Costco for 800 times what he paid. Wow. That was just a secret.
Pretty good.
Exactly.
There's all kinds of strategies about, quote, how to use other people's money in order to get started if you don't have your own. And without addressing any of those myriad strategies that are out there, I'd say the number one quickest path is relational capital.
Agreed.
When you have relationships that are built on trust and integrity, when somebody knows that your word is gold, and then you have an opportunity to make an investment and they have the money, they're willing to invest in you, right? And so you have to be willing to ask. You have to be willing to articulate the opportunity. You have to believe in it. But relational capital is a quick way to get your seed money, your startup money, if you don't have it yourself. And then there's all kinds of other strategies, but I don't think anything is more lucrative than relational capital.
Right. The titles grab you. First one that grabbed me, chapter 1. What you don't know can hurt you, which is the opposite of the old adage, what you don't know, can't hurt you. So explain that. What do I not know that can hurt me?
Well, what's interesting in today's society, I believe that organized knowledge and wisdom is the most powerful tool in the world. So back in the day, if you'd walk into the library, there's a lot of information, but if you didn't know exactly where to go to find it to ask the right questions, it was just trivia.
Right.
So in today's world, I believe that by not knowing and having access to that information can set you back. However, there's so much access in today's civilization by reaching out to the people who've already accomplished what you want for counsel, and as well as the internet. There's so many more things available than we did. Understand this, the cell phone you have in your phone right now has access to more information than Bill Clinton had as President of the United States of America.
That's true.
Things have changed. And so I think that it's more of a world economy now, so you can start collaborating on a different level. And again, I can mastermind with people right now from India, from China, all around the world where we didn't have that same opportunity before.
One of the great things about, well, first of all, just what you don't know can hurt you. If people don't know the value of mastermind, that can hurt, because then you'll stay alone, you won't get the resources, etc. And then when you have that vulnerable experience with people month after month or week after week or whatever the interval is, you build that bond and that relational capital. One of the things that people don't know about the value of a mastermind, if they've never experienced one, for example, is how much they learn from other people's opportunity seat rather than just their own.
Right.
People are so concerned and ego defensive about how am I going to present myself when I sit in my seat, and am I going to have to admit some shortcoming? And so they're almost like energetically their defenses are up. So any counsel that they're receiving, they may not hear it all.
Right.
Meanwhile, the 10 or 11 other people in the room are saying, "Oh, I might have that problem down the road," but it's not their seat. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So they can actually learn more from watching 11 other opportunity seats than they might even learn from their own. But if you don't know that, you might not get into the mastermind in the first place because you're protecting your ego. So that's one thing that people may not know that is hurting them if they're not actively masterminding.
Are you guys currently in mastermind groups?
Absolutely.
Is it a constant in your
Constant,
lives?
and they change.
Right.
It's really interesting. People always talk about mentors, and I believe that you mastermind with mentors, people that you want to learn something from. And you can have multiple mentors in our lives. So for example, I've got a great tennis mentor who teaches me my backhand.
Who's that? I love tennis.
Do you really? You got to come to San Diego. But I'm not going to ask that person financial counsel.
Right.
So I'm very careful what we do. So when you mastermind, make sure that we surround ourselves with people that you have respect for, not people you have influence over.
Okay. That's a
great
way to look at it.
And sometimes a little bit of both is okay. Like when you get 12 people in the room, you don't have to, like, in other words, some people in that group are going to be the ones that you look up to, and some people in that group are going to be ones looking up to you. So there's a balance, and with enough people in the group, everybody's going to win.
And who's organizing these groups?
Well, that's what we're doing. We started the Mastermind Association to teach people how to become certified so that they can start running and hosting in their own community. You'd be shocked and amazed how one person in a local small town feels alone. They're like an island. So what we want to do is teach them that they can reach out to their local, top car dealer and the real estate person and the network marketing person. And if they all came together as a collective, amazing opportunities are lying right there at their feet, but they're just not connected with them. Right. That's what this does.
It's actually better than that, in my opinion. It's not just get certified so you can start a group, right? It's get certified so you can lead a group that you may have been invited into. And I think that's important because one of the things I love about partnering with Greg and the principles of masterminding is in our association, one of the rules that we set up is that when people come together to do their meeting, the very first thing that everybody in the group will do is come together and work on something for somebody outside of the group, like the homeless guy down the street or a charity or a cause or a nonprofit or something. So all 12 people are coming together, and the way I set up my groups is whoever's leading the meeting that time gets to choose the cause that benefits from the collective. So if everybody is certified, then next month you can run the meeting and you get to choose what group gets to benefit from our collective efforts.
Sure.
And so if all 12 people are certified, the group has more shelf life or more staying power, because if one person can't make it, somebody else can step up and lead it and the group continues to go.
Final question, I was just curious how much thought and R&D went into Kyle. Why'd you choose that name, male versus female? Why that character specifically?
Yeah, there was no specific answer to that question, except what we wanted to do is take an embodiment of a lot of experiences that we've gone through and put it into one person. So basically, that is a person who represents both Jeff and I along our life's journey.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, it's like
A composite character.
it's like a Trojan horse to get the success principles illuminated, and it's not a dry read. It's a very easy read. You get through it quickly. You turn the pages really fast, and it's different than reading something academic or overly verbose, etc. So it's an easy way to just get someone's attention on the principles.
Right.
Of the
And
association.
no big words were harmed writing this book.
No, they were not. I
For sure. Why I say
speak to
little
that.
words, big font.
Yes,
right?
I can speak to that. No, but it's easy. It's an easy read. It's a fun read because it's a narrative.
Yeah.
So it's unique in that sense, and it's a unique topic and very cool. I haven't read a book like it here on the show. So congratulations.
Thank
It's
you very
exciting.
much.
Will there be another book to follow?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Stay tuned.
All right, we will.
Awesome.
Thanks, guys, so much. If you'd like more information on the book, just check out our website, csuitebookclub.com. That's c-suitebookclub.com. I'm Taryn Winterbrill. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time right here on Bestseller TV.